3, 2, 1. Hey friends, Janky here, and welcome back to the lab. Today, we are looking at a fighting game from Sweet Bandit Studios called Coffence, the coffee-themed fighting game. If hipsters made a fighting game, I have to imagine it would be a lot like this game. Let me tell you about it by reading the description on the Steam store. Coffence is a fast-paced blend of fighting games and twin-stick shooters with a dash of caffeine. Coffee is literally your health bar, and every hit ejects the precious liquid up into the air for anyone to take. Experience dramatic reversals and tense standoffs as you fight to the last drop with up to 4 players. It is a strange game. I haven't even finished recording all the footage for it yet, but from what I've played so far, it's fun, and it's weird, and it's great. And I don't play a ton of fighting games, but this one's a pretty good one. So, before we get started looking at the game, let me pull out the experimental bias board so I can talk a bit about my biases going into this game. First of all, I got this game for free from Sweet Bandit Studios. I contacted them through Indie Boost, and they sent me a code. I'm very excited for that, but you should know that I did receive this game for free. Additionally, this game is in early access over on Steam, so they're calling what I'm playing right now the pre-alpha build. There's still a lot of characters and levels and modes to add, and actually whenever you go into the game, it actually shows some of what they're looking to put in, party mode and some other stuff, and online mode, and it just is coming soon right now, so obviously there's still a lot more to check out in this game. Also, I was playing this game, once again, by myself. I didn't think to ask for 2 codes, so I ended up playing against the computer. But it was still a pretty fun game all around. It would definitely be more fun to play with friends, but that's what I have for experimental biases. So, with all that in mind, I will step out of the way. I hope you guys enjoy Coffence. Okay, so let's get to talking about Coffence, the coffee-based fighting game, which I have to give credit to the developers, is a very interesting choice for a fighting game. And it actually turned out pretty fun. So the first thing I have for you guys here is just the tutorial level. So this is just sort of an introduction to the movements. I tried just cutting together a whole bunch of fighting scenes, but it turns out that it's easier just to like show you what's going on. This first part is basically just basic movements of the game. So left joystick, if you're playing on a controller, which I was, is just about moving back and forth. You can also dash if you double tap in a certain direction. Then the right stick actually moves the arm that the coffee is being held in. So this is one of the interesting features of this game, right? Is that even though one stick is controlling the movement, the other stick is actually controlling the hand that the coffee cup is in, which is what you use to actually aim your attacks. So in most fighting games, you have an anti-air, which, you know, is aimed up above for people jumping down at you. You have your regular attacks, which are forward. You have crouching lows. You have a series of attacks. This game lets you create those attacks yourself by allowing you to control the direction of your coffee cup, which is really cool. This shows off another feature of the game, which is the coffee cups themselves. So another interesting, unique feature of this game is that the coffee cups contain coffee, and the coffee acts as your life. So you try to knock the opponent's coffee, and by knocking their coffee, it knocks a drop of coffee into the air. You can either catch that and add to your own life, or you can just let it fall on the ground so they don't have it anymore. The point is, you're trying to drain your opponent's cup to 0 in order to win the game. So what I find makes this feature particularly interesting is that it means it doesn't matter if you hit your opponent. It only matters if you hit the opponent's cup. Because actually, one of the things that you'll notice whenever we get into the fights and stuff is that I actually hit my opponent a lot. But it doesn't matter unless you actually hit their cup. This can be a little hard to keep track of sometimes. Just whenever you're jumping all over the place. Particularly, I think, in party mode, which wasn't a mode of the game that I tried. But I think with 4 players on the field, it would be very hard to aim specifically for the cups, which adds a degree of difficulty to the game. I also just think that it makes it interesting in general. I don't know if interesting in a good way or a bad way. I want to say in a good way. I actually think that it's interesting that you can hit your opponents, but it doesn't matter unless you actually focus in on their cups. And the cups are flying everywhere. So, you know, you actually have to gain some amount of skill within the game in order to succeed. So, the other thing that I want to mention while we're here in the tutorial is the actual nature of the game, which is it's a rock, paper, scissors style fighter. And what that means, and what you may have noticed a couple screens back here in the tutorial explanation, is that each attack has a strength and weakness. So melee and ranged attacks, they're weak to blocks, but they are strong against spin attacks. Blocks are strong against melee and ranged, but they're weak to spin attacks, and spin attacks are weak to melee and ranged, but they can break blocks. So it's kind of a figure out what your opponent is doing and play the counter to that. Now, getting into the actual setup of the menus here, I do want to mention real quick as we're flying through them that I really like how the developers of the game actually included their future plans as part of the menus, because with early access games, you don't always know where the game is going. I mean, you have a base game, but the developers aren't always clear about what they're planning on adding in the future, or maybe they'll put in the notes, but they won't actually show it to you in the game. Not that that's a bad thing, but I just love that these developers have taken the time to actually show off where they intend to take the game in the future. Like how in the main menu it shows that they have a space for an online mode, which is awesome because I am an online person. I don't really play that many local matches. And when I do, they're against AI like this. But I think it's cool that they show that they're going to add an online mode. They have a game mode called Party. I don't know what that's about, but it sounds really cool. I don't know if it'll be like 4-person brawl. I imagine there'll be a little more to it than that. But I just think that it's cool that they show you where they want to go with the game. Getting into some other features of the game, you may have seen as we brushed through the opening screens here with character select and cup select and stage select and stuff, I kind of breezed through those, and that's because, as far as I could tell, there's not really any big differences between the characters. I don't think that any particular character gives you an advantage in terms of jumping or attacks or anything like that. I think it's all cosmetic. And the same is true for the cups. I don't really think that any particular cup gives you an advantage when it comes to catching drops or anything like that. So I just kind of went with the classic coffee mug. And, of course, the classic hipster barista. But you'll notice that I made the AI the business guy, so I was trying to make a statement on business versus artisanship, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to show you here in the back half of this game as I'm just playing through these matches is how cool these stages are. They have epic rocking music. This is Pirates of the Caribbean, I think is what this stage is called. I just absolutely love it. The one thing that I would really like more, though, I think, is if the stages got some sort of unique characterization. Because right now, of course, they have this really unique setting and this really unique music to it, but I would love to see something specific to this stage. Like maybe some sort of like stage effect that is specific to this stage. Like maybe the ship tilts, or maybe in the last one I played, which was the Moonbeam stage, maybe it's lower gravity so you can jump higher. Just like little additions that can sort of spice up the stages so that and again, these are beautiful stages with beautiful music and composing and all that, but just something to give it a little more pizzazz, I guess is the word I'm looking for. That being said, it is kind of nice to just be able to focus on the combat because if I didn't say it before, I should say it now. It is very skill-focused combat. I think I did say that during the tutorial. The one other thing I want to talk about before I pull out the experimental scale is just some general features that I don't really talk about that often, just because I'm not really sure how much I know about them, but just as a side note, in terms of things like frame rate and graphics, obviously the graphics on this game are beautiful. There were a couple times here and there where I had some issues with frame dropping. Nothing huge, and I think a lot of what you're seeing in here may also be due to XSplit. It wasn't really anything super bad, but just because it is a fighting game, and of course, it's important to, know what frames are where in fighting games, because people in fighting games are really intense about that sort of thing. That might be one note that I would have for this game, is just to improve the frame rate and add that little extra pizzazz to the stages themselves. And maybe some extra pizzazz to the characters too. But I mean, I kind of like the characters' personalities the way they are. Anyway, let's pull out the Janky's experimental scale. As you guys remember, there are 5 possible options. There is smashing success, promising results, more trials needed, revisions required, and acid kid. I am more than happy to give this game a promising results. I really enjoyed it. I think it has a lot of potential as a fighting game. I think it has a lot of skill. And I think it just has a really quirky, funny idea to it. And I'm glad that they ran with coffee as their basis for a fighting game. And I don't know. I recommend that you check it out. I think it's cool. And I hope you guys agree. If you don't, of course, feel free to leave in the comments down below. But for now, I'm going to consider this experiment concluded. So, I hope you guys enjoyed yet another Janky's Lab. If you did, feel free to leave those likes down below. Comment, positive or negative. Like I said, feel free to leave those below as well. But more than anything, I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or whatever you happen to be watching. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, this is Janky Shenanigans, signing out.